theyeshiva.net.
First of all, thank you so much for giving me the privilege of being here with you on such a powerful and charged day, the day in which all of us really become a piece of Jewish history. You know, sometimes young people ask me interesting questions, and somebody once asked, what do I need this headache? 3 weeks, 9 days, Tisha B'Av. Leave me alone. I'm living in the 21st century. These things happened 2,500 years ago, 1,900 years ago, 2,000 years ago. Life has moved on. And I shared with this young man, I said, I know superficially it may look like, I can't eat meat, and I can't drink wine, and today is a fast day, and all of the limitations and halachas connected to Tisha B'Av, etc. But I said, I just want you to see the other side of it. And that is, this is a people that's been around for more than 3,300 years. And when we were reading Eicha last night in Shul, I was thinking to myself, and then I shared it with my little boy who was sitting near me. And I said, Yirmiyah Hanavi was a prophet who lived through the last 5 kings of Judea, observed the Churban in 586 before the Common Era, or 3338 in the Jewish calendar. And he wrote these words, Eicha Yashva Vadad Ha'ira Basiyam, Ani Hagever Ra Ani, Hashivenu Hashem Elecha V'Nashuv V'Chadesh Shemenu Kekedem. He literally wrote these words at that time. And here we, living 2.5 millennia later, read, gather together, sitting on the ground, without shoes, with the lights dimmed, with the paroichas removed, with a sense of melancholy, reading these words, thousands of years later, Chazdei Hashem ki lo samnu, ki lo chalu rachamav. Who cannot feel moved by such a connection, by such an eternal living link, that after so many generations, through persecutions and savage suffering and unfathomable pain, not only are we here, but we continue with vibrancy, the story, the narrative, the heritage, the faith, the resilience, the fortitude, the vision, the perspective, and the celebration of daily Jewish life that all of our ancestors lived for and died for. And yet, we keep on going strong and we ask ourselves, where is Nebuchadnezzar? Where is Titus? Where is Vespasian? Where is Caligula, Pompey, Tiberius, Adrian? Where are they? Where is Pare? Where is Turcomedes, Khmelnytsky, Alfred Rosenberg, Eichmann, Himmler, Stalin? Where are they? And the answer is they are all in Wikipedia. That's where they are. You can check them up right now. We are the Jewish people, the tiny minority that each of them tried to decimate completely. Where are we? And the answer is, we created Wikipedia, together with Google and Facebook and some other major social technological advancements, and we edit them. You can go in and you can edit the entry for Vespasian and Titus and Nebuchadnezzar. This is the day when we can vividly reconnect and become a continuous chain of that Jewish history. There's a lot of sadness and pain in it. The Kiddush is never easy to read, especially the last segments that were added a few decades ago for the 6 million victims, because in Tisha B'Av we already, pack it all in. All of Jewish history is there. All the blood, all the pain, all the tears, all the sobs. But also the greatest celebration of hope and faith in the history of civilization. As every single Jew today who I met said, it should be the last Tisha B'Av in Galus. Next Tisha B'Av, everybody should be in Yerushalayim. Not only my friend Rabbi Yehuda singing from the Kaisel, Al Eila Ni Bechia or Nachem O Nachem, I don't know if it was a backdrop or real, but everybody should be there. Sannes Lekabetz Goli Yosein. And I really want to thank Brooklyn Jewish Experience for their incredible work all year, and for giving me the privilege and schus to address all of the hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people gathered here throughout the day, throughout the day, to strengthen each other. Chazak v'nis chazek. And thank you, Brooklyn Jewish Experience, for everything you do for all of Hashem's children. Kiruv Kroivim and Kiruv Rechoikim. Shalom, shalom, la rachaik v'la. Somebody asked me, it should have said first, la karev, the famous question in Chazal. Shalom, shalom, la rachaik v'la. And I said, I'll tell you my little take on it. Sometimes it's easier to say shalom to the rachaik than it is to the karev. The one who's rachaik, who never had a negative experience, never felt anything negative, okay, you got to bring them closer. The karev, the one who's, the Heimish Buchadol, the one who grew up Mishaluni, as they say, the one who grew up in a strong Jewish community and then becomes distant, it has a unique challenge. And you reach out, shalom, shalom, you say shalom l'rachaik v'la karev. And for that, may Hashem give you and all of us the koiches to be able to continue, each of us to be an ambassador of the Rebbeinu Shalom in this world, to bring all of His children, boys and girls from all walks of life and all backgrounds, no matter their experiences, their home, and anything that they have endured, to be able to bring them closer to their loving, infinitely loving Father in heaven, the Shechina HaKadosh, their father and their mother, who awaits, as you eloquently said a few moments ago, the embrace, Yeminoi Techapkeni, the embrace of every single Yiddish neshama, every single Jewish soul. One of the most powerful insights I've once heard came from Rabbi Yankele Galinsky, famous Maggid from Bnei Brak, who said that he heard it from the Steipler Gaon, Zeichet Tzadik Livracha. And the Steipler shared with him the following incredible and charged insight. And he said, I want you to think a moment. He told Rabbi Yankele, I had a beautiful idea today, and he was excited, and he shared it with Rabbi Yankele Galinsky, who then shared it publicly. And the Steipler Gaon, Rabbi Yaakov Kanevsky, said as follows. He said, I want you to note a fascinating narrative that our sages, Zichronim Livracha, describe about our ancient history and the greatest of our patriarchs, the third one, Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is traveling. He escaped his father's home because of the wrath of his brother. And years later, he would tell Hashem, Ki b'makli avardi es hayardin. I crossed Jordan only with my stick, and now I have this whole amazing family that I built in Lavan's home. And Rashi says, Yitzchak couldn't give Yaakov Avinu a couple of items besides a stick? Come on. When Avram sends Yitzchak to get a shidduch, when he sends Eliezer to get a shidduch for Yitzchak, 10 camels, v'chol tuv adoinov, abundance of assets and money. Rashi says he gave him a shtar matana, a document, a deed that proves that the new daughter-in-law is going to have access to everything. Now Yitzchak sends his son Yaakov for a shidduch. Yitzchak also had a couple of dollars. He can't give Yaakov something, a stick. He walked with a stick. So Rashi famously quotes the Medrash. Our sages teach that Yaakov Avinu went with a lot of money to Lavan, just as Yitzchak, when he was about to do a shidduch, Avram gave him everything. What happened was Eliphaz, Yitzchak's son, pursued Yaakov, and he caught up to him and he said, my father commanded me to kill you, to murder you. And in Esau's family, Kibud Av was critical, it was very important. So I have to kill you. So Yaakov sat down with Eliphaz and he said, let's have a shir. And he gave him a shir in Masechta Nedarim, where the Gemara says, Ani chashuv kameis. A poor person is considered dead. Take all my money and it'll be considered that I'm dead. So two things will happen. I will be considered dead, you have fulfilled your father's commandment, but on the other hand, you didn't kill me. And Rashi says, because Eliphaz, Gadal b'cheker shel Yitzchak, because Eliphaz grew up in the bosom of Yitzchak, therefore, he listened to Yaakov. He could not get himself to murder him in cold blood. He took all of his money to fulfill the instructions of his father Esau, because Kibud Av is Kibud Av. Tati said, I got to kill Yaakov. He took all his money, and indeed, Yaakov arrived to Lavan penniless, broke, kibemakli avarti es hayardin. Asks the Steipler, I want to think about this. Rashi says Eliphaz grew up b'cheker shel Yitzchak, in the bosom, literally on the lap of Yitzchak, Eliphaz. Esau already married women. The pasuk says, "Vatiyena meiras ruach liYitzchak u'Rivka." Yitzchak and Rivka were deeply upset by the wives that Esau chose because they would smoke up Tavai Zarah. Yitzchak knew that Ein Shem Shamayim Shagar B'Fiv, Esav will rarely mention Hashem's name. Now Esav has a son, Eliphaz. And we know in Parshas Vayishlach how these children of Esau came about. There was endless, incessant adultery, as Rashi describes. Eliphaz himself would behave in the most promiscuous way. There was promiscuous and immoral relationships with everybody, including with mothers and daughters, and as Rashi describes in Vayishlach from Gemara Sanhedrin. And he would indeed father a little boy named Amalek. And Yitzchak knew all of this about Eliphaz. And he was a grandson, he wasn't even a son. Yet, he kept him on his lap. Friday night, as Yitzchak was singing Zmiris, and saying over Torah from Avraham Avinu, saying over Torah from Noach, from Adam Arishan, Eliphaz, who would become one of the great troublemakers, a mischievous boy, the apple did not fall far from the tree, and the next apple did not fall far from the tree. And Yitzchak kept him on his lap. He did not throw him out of the house. He maintained a relationship with him, and a warm one. He didn't just give him a room in the attic and say, leave me alone, lock the door, we'll send dinner. He kept him on his lap. Said the Steipler, okay, you think he was a nice man, Yitzchak? Maybe he felt guilty a little bit. Who knows? Maybe what happened with Yishmael. Maybe he felt this is the right thing, but it was a failure. It was a failure. Nothing happened with Eliphaz. Look what happened. He became the father of Amalek. And then you read at the end of Vayishlach, you see all this nus he was involved in. Said the Steipler, he says, you always have to know the second half of the story. Jacob Avinu is running away to Lavan's house. Eliphaz is sent, he's dispatched by his father to murder Jacob Avinu. And he abstains. You know why? One reason. Lefisha gadal b'cheker shel Yitzchak. Because he sat in the bosom, he was raised in the bosom of Yitzchak. Said the Steipler Gaon, imagine, if Jacob Avinu would have been killed at that moment, the Jewish seed would have been decimated for eternity. This is before Yaakov got married, there's no children. All of Klal Yisrael's existence till the end of history, we owe to the fact that Yitzchak did not give up on Eliphaz. He did not expel Eliphaz from the house. He didn't throw him out of his life, of his community, of his family, of his tradition. He was mekarev him. He stayed close with him. He kept him right there on his lap. Did Eliphaz become the Gadol Hador? No. Did he become a Rebbe Akiva Eger, a Pnei Yeshua, no, the Yehuda? No. But all of Jewish existence owes its endurance, its life, al piteva, to Eliphaz's decision at that moment. I cannot take Fetter Yaakov's life. I can't take Uncle Yaakov's life. And I would just add, if I may, if you open up a Sefer Eov, I think it's chapter 4 or chapter 6, Eliphaz Hatemoni is one of the friends of Eov who comes to console him and talk to him after the terrible losses of Eov. And Eliphaz starts speaking words that are incredible, profound, Ruach HaKodesh, recorded in the Tanakh. Rashi says, where did Eliphaz become such an eloquent speaker from? Where did Eliphaz become such a Baal Machshava, such a Baal Hashkofe? Where did Eliphaz become such a Talmid Chochem, a Gon Olam, a Baal Ruach HaKodesh? Read Eliphaz's speeches in Eov, you'll see. And Rashi says, you know why? Because he grew up in the bosom of Yitzchak. One day, Ruach HaKodesh dwelled on Eliphaz. One day, he became a conduit for divine inspiration. And thus, the Steipler said to Rabbi Yankala, we have to learn from this how Yitzchak thought and how we ought to think. And I say this to you, my dear friends, as we address a topic that we all know is very personal, very relevant, and very painful. The theme that was allotted to me is off the derech, where did we go wrong? And I want to share with you and say something that I think is very important, and that is, I want to give all the parents of Klal Yisrael a standing ovation. Join me to give yourself, if you're a parent, if you're a mommy or a tati, I want to give you a standing ovation to all of the parents of the Jewish people, because many of you have seen tremendous challenges in recent years, and yet you continue to learn and to grow and to ask questions and to search for answers and to search for ways. I know some of us are dysfunctional. I know some of us suffer from trauma. I know some of us have made big mistakes, and we all have to mend our mistakes and learn from the past. But all in all, I say to you, all of you at the Brooklyn Jewish Experience and all of you who are watching, I get every single day, not 10 and not 50 and not 100 emails, and many of them are from parents searching to become better. How do I talk to my child? How do I inspire my child? How do I bring back my child? Many parents, I will say all of us, are struggling with questions that when we were children we didn't remember that we had to struggle with these questions. As I said the other night, my grandmother was not a neuroscientist. Before she had children, she did not go to neuroscientists to learn everything about brain development and what you say and how you say it and what you don't say and how you discipline, how you don't discipline, and how the brain works and how the brain learns. They didn't know for thousands of years. Our parents didn't know about neuroscience. Today we are confronted with the situation of many, many children who are not finding themselves in the Derech HaTorah and the Derech HaMitzvah, what people like to call the system. There's this expression called OTD. The first thing I want to give a special Yasher Keichachem to the mothers and fathers who with Mesiras Nefesh and with tenaciousness and endless love and commitment and sacrifice and a lot of pain are asking, are searching. They're going to seminars and workshops. They're going to shiurim and websites. They're reading books and sfarim. They're trying to learn. They're going to professionals and therapists, some who help them and some who don't help them, and some who make it better and some who make it worse, and some who are effective and some who are ineffective. Sometimes those who are extremely successful and the opposite as well. And yet they go to Rabbanim and they go to Mashpiyim and Mechanchim and Rebbes and Rosh Yeshivas and communicators and thinkers of all forms and styles, some better, some worse, some amazing, some not so amazing, some experienced, some inexperienced, but searching, Yismach Leiv, Mevakshe Hashem, such a bikush, to be able to be better mothers and better fathers. It's an incredible, incredible thing. That thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of parents searching, what's the right way? What did I do wrong? How do I make things better? Congratulate yourself. You're allowed to. You're allowed to. I know maybe it's not a Jewish thing, guilt, www.jewishguilt.com, but I want you to be able to give appreciation to yourself. That's number one. A few points that I think can be helpful to all of us. It's so important, like we learned from the Stipler. We may not have the perfect answers, but our derech cannot be so narrow to have to cut off and sever our bonds with our loved ones. Despite disagreements, despite pain, there is a lot of pain, and I'm going to ask you to acknowledge the pain. And you could cry for the pain. There are parents watching now, and you know the pain you have been through. It's serious. It's deep. It's powerful. It's potent. Give yourself applause, but also allow yourself to feel the pain. And yet, despite all the pain, do not sever the cords. In the large majority of cases, I would say 99% of cases, I'm sure there are few exceptions, but I think in almost every single case, the decision to disown a child proves disastrous. And let me tell you something. The pain of your child not living according to the standards and the values you so deeply cherish and you so deeply wanted to bequeath to this child is deep. But it pales in comparison to the pain of losing your child forever, of cutting your child out of your life and saying, you're not mine anymore, and this home is not your home. Do not do that to yourself. I have not long ago, before Corona, traveled to a community. I spoke about this topic at Shalashudas. A father came over to me in tears. He's a Baal Tshuva. Many, many decades ago. He had a boy, a teenager. At the age of 16 or 17, he dropped out of yeshiva. He wasn't interested anymore. And he started to behave quite mischievously, and he abandoned the path of Shulchan Aruch. And this innocent father went to get advice from people who I am sure meant well. And the advice that they gave him then, around 35 years ago, was, make an ultimatum. If he doesn't shape up, ship him out, throw him out of the house. If you need, change the lock so you should not get back in. He'll learn his lesson, he'll come back home, and he'll become a good boy. The father told me I did that. My boy left the house. I haven't spoken to him in more than 30 years. He never came home, he never called, and he never accepts my call. A few years ago, I found out that he married out. He married out of the Jewish faith. He says to me, nobody knows this, but in more than 30 years, I have not had one night of sleep. He looked at me, he held my hand, and he said, why couldn't you give this speech that you gave here at Shalashudas 35 years ago? I had nothing to say. I had tears in my eyes. I told him 35 years ago I was eating cotton candy. Nicht Tisha B'Av gerät. What am I supposed to tell him? I am not judging anybody. I'm really not. Maybe at some point it worked. I don't know if it ever worked. But I say to you, sometimes it's important to help your child get a job, become independent, move on with life. But to sever the cords, you're not mine, you're an embarrassment to our mishpacha, you're not part of the Jewish people. Arais! I say to you with love and no judgmentalism that in 99% of situations, that pain will be far worse than any other pain in the world. I'm going to remind you an incredible teaching of Chazal. Every year when I learn it again, this time of the year, I'm shocked, I'm startled. You all know it because you learn it every year, but we don't really internalize the message. It's right in the beginning of Parshas Dvarim. Rashi says at the end of Moshe's life, the last 5 weeks, he decided to do some good old teichecha. He's going to rebuke the Jewish people. Moshe, the last 5 weeks, asks Rashi, why did Moshe decide to do this right before his death? And he said he learned it from somebody. Who did he learn it from? Yaakov. Yaakov rebuked his children when? Right before he passed away. Parshas Vayechi. Yaakov summons his children. Hagidu vash. Come together, Hagid, and I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. He begins with Reuven, koichi v'reishis oini. The person who was supposed to get Yeser Se'ez v'Yeser Ez, the gift of B'chayra, the gift of Kahuna, the gift of Malchus. Pachas kamayim al toisra ki alisa mishkevei avicha. Haschilel yitzui Allah. He chastises Reuven for what he did. So many years ago, after Rachel passed away, when he interfered into the private, intimate life of Yaakov Avinu and Leah. Asks Rashi, why did Yaakov wait till his death? Why did he wait to share with Reuven how pained he was by what he did? By his death. You know what Rashi answers? Yaakov told Reuven, Reuven b'ni, Reuven my son, you know why? You know why I didn't rebuke you all these years? I was afraid. I was afraid that you're going to abandon me. And you're going to become glued, you're going to cleave and become dovuk, connected to my brother Esau. And therefore, I did not say a word. Could you think together with me about this statement in Rashi quoting the Medrash? I am not giving teichecha to Reuven all these years. Why? Because if I do, he can get insulted, he can get angry, he could say, okay, my father doesn't like me, my father doesn't approve of my behavior. You know what? I have an option. Uncle Esau führt euch Tisch. Esau is a psycha ganzer Mensch. I'll go to Esau, and Esau will welcome me. And I would add something a little deeper. Reuven and Esau have a common denominator. Why? They both lost their birthright. Esau sold his birthright, and Reuven had his birthright taken from him and given to Yosef. There is shared grief. There's shared grievances. Esau and Reuven would be fine. Mechutanim, Reuven would find an empathetic ear in Esau. Rashi says he's going to go and become davuk in Esau. Wow. Here's my question. If Yaakov was really suspicious that this can happen to Reuven, Why chastise him at all? If you give him Musar, now also he can run to Esau. Is it because Hashem Alta Yid, he's an older person? If you're so worried at any point he's going to run away from you to Esau, what happened now? I think the answer is quite clear in Rashi's words. Rashi doesn't tell us why Yaakov didn't give him Musar all these years. He says what Yaakov told Reuven why he didn't give him Musar. Reuven suddenly had a realization. For 48 years, Yaakov kept his mouth under restrictions of communication. Yaakov put a zipper on his holy mouth, not to call in his b'chor and say, my tayyid b'chor, you're one of the 12 shvatim, shifte yudke. They were all tzaddikim k'doshim, kulam tzaddikim. They're all mentioned as Bnei Yisrael, as Rashi says in Vayishlach, even after the mistake of Reuven. 48 years, a half a century, Yaakov did not say a word to Reuven that would bring out and accentuate something negative that happened. Why? Because he may feel, my father doesn't like me. My father doesn't approve of me. My father doesn't validate me. And he would go search for an Esau, to become a chassid of Esau instead of Yaakov. That would be the choice. And when Yaakov told us to Reuven, he realized, for 50 years, my father kept this pain inside and would not communicate it, not to lose me, because he understood my emotions. That's how sensitive he was. That's when Reuven realized who Yaakov Avinu was. Now I understand why mitasei shleima, why none of Yaakov's children left the derech. Yishmael left, Esav left, not Yaakov. The Gemara says, you know why? So Asemes has an incredible insight. To use a yeshivish language, it wasn't a din in the Shvatim, it was a din in Yaakov. It's not that Yaakov hit the jackpot and all the kids went through the system. Graduated high school with honors, went to Eretz Yisrael, learned in yeshiva, steigt, came back, it was gewaldig, awesome, wonderful. Shidduch, married them off, apidin aben, an opshanish, bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah. I once asked a rabbi, what do you do for a living? He says, I do three things for my community. I hatch them, I match them, and I dispatch them. It's not that Yaakov hit the jackpot, everybody came out perfect. Mitasei Shleima was a din in Yaakov, it's how he saw his children. He saw each of his children as a divine diamond. He saw each of his children as a chelik eloka mimal. He saw each and every single one of his children as a huge, gigantic soul, a neshama, a manifestation of the Rebbeinu Shalom's light in this world, a shliach of Hashem in this world to change the world to the better. He knew that each of the children is different, has a unique shlichus, a unique trajectory, a unique destiny, a unique disposition, unique gifts, virtues, challenges. Yosef needed a special ksainis pasim, a colorful tunic, because Yosef would have to engage a multicolorful and diverse universe and world in which if you do not understand who you are, you can easily disintegrate. Rather, the Shvatim who remained royei tzayin, shepherds, because their avodah had to be more in isolation and spiritual communion with the Borei Olam. Yaakov's mitasoi was shlema because he saw the powerful shlemus in every child, and he helped each and every one of them find it, discover it, live with it, excavate it, accentuate it, and bring it to the fore. I want to, my dearest friends, say something else that I think is so important. Don't take things personal. Your children say things, sometimes they're painful. Don't take it personal. Don't make it an ego game. Who's going to win? You don't talk to me like that. Sometimes discipline is very, very important. I'm going to get to that in one moment. But wherever the right thing to do is, don't make it a personal vendetta and a personal conflict. You're a parent. And these children are not your children. They're Hashem's children. Hashem gave you these children as a gift. As a gift, He gave you diamonds in order to polish. I don't own these diamonds. My responsibility is to do whatever I can to help these diamonds shine. But they're not mine. I'm a partner with Hashem. They're His children. You could tell that to Hashem. They're your children. Now give me the koiches I need to help your diamonds get polished. But don't take it personal. It's not a personal insult against you and a demonstration of how bad you are and what a failure you are, and the neighbors are going to say that you have no nachas and there's not going to be good shidduchim and it's going to be a stain on the family. Don't go there. You're going into a petty, narrow place. This is not a personal issue. You want to ask yourself, what is my shlichus today? What does Hashem want me to do today to be able to help this child? That's the question you ask. One more thing, don't make decisions based on social conformity. Don't sacrifice children on the altar of social acceptance. That neighbor or that uncle or that aunt or that cousin or the baba the zayda who don't understand what you're going through, don't know what is happening in your family, and all they can do is have a comment, do not sacrifice your children on the altar of somebody who doesn't really care about them, saying something flattering. Make decisions from a place of emes, from a place of authenticity, from a place of pnimius. Another very important thing is it's important to distinguish where your children are in the course of life. If I can give a sad metaphor, there is stage 4 cancer, there is stage 1. It's not the same treatment. Sometimes a child is in a certain place where everything has to change. All of your previous notions have to be suspended because this kid is in danger. This kid is what we call stage 4 spiritually or morally, and here you need special type of advice of how to deal with it. But there's other stages, and you can't compare ages, you can't compare stages. It's extremely important not to understand that at certain stages, loving discipline is crucial and important and powerful. Children need it. The famous metaphor is that I went to an amusement park and I went into the roller coaster and I fastened the seatbelt. And indeed, I was trying to undo the seatbelt, not because that I wanted it to come apart. I wanted it should be strong. Sometimes our children test the seatbelt, not because they want to destroy it, because they want to see that they have parents who really care about them and care about their consequences, but not from anger and not with impulsiveness, and don't be impetuous and infuriated, from a place of inner connection, inner wholesomeness, inner strength. Today's children are very, very honest, very honest. Hypocrisy, superficiality does not work. We need to give them a very deep Yiddishkeit. We have to be very honest with them. Authenticity today is the name of the game. And we see today that any form of dysfunction and toxicity is being vomited by the young generation. It challenges us to go much deeper into ourselves. And very often you should know, your children are here, not only for their own sake, that's true, but they also help us become the people that we are supposed to become. When your child is really, really challenging you, instead of decomposing and breaking down and losing the plot, take a deep breath, relax, nurture your body and your mind and your soul, and then, from a place of serenity, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? This child is going to trigger awareness, and if we remain open to the opportunity, if we remain serene during the challenge, the destruction of old patterns can become the renovation of new paradigms. We can have an expansive consciousness. The destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash is also the renovation of the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi. One door closes and another door opens. The churban of one level begins the binyan of another level. Our children will help us become much better, much wiser, much deeper, much more authentic, much more real, much more loving, and much more godly. Where Yiddishkeit must be not superficial and just cultural and nice and cute and, part of the Kehillah life, but it's real. It's a relationship with Hashem that is real, that is deep, that is authentic. Where we appreciate Torah and mitzvahs from a place of a much deeper pnimius. It's not just I'm a robot and I have a contract and I fulfill the contract, I do the right thing, and one day I'm going to get rewarded. But really to understand the Kihem Chayenu V'Erech Yameinu, that Torah and mitzvahs are the tools that the Creator of the world gave us in order to live a life that is aligned with infinity, in order to live the most powerful, blessed life in the world, in order to be able to become and embody that life in which I am an ambassador of infinity in this world, a shliach of Hashem in this world, to bring infinite life and infinite light and infinite goodness into any situation and every situation. Another such an important idea is we got to believe in those children. Never, ever, ever give up on a child. Never, ever despair of a child. And don't think that Yiddishkeit is so fragile and that their neshama is so fragile that you have to go into despair. You have to believe in Yiddishkeit more. You have to believe that this is really Hashem's blueprint for life. Don't think it's so fragile. It's not so weak. Maybe it's weak by me, so I have to strengthen myself. We have to strengthen ourselves. And believe in their soul. Their souls are big. Their souls are divine. You got to believe in them. Through thick and thin, do not stop believing in those children so that they should be able to believe in themselves. I'm going to conclude with a story. I recently read in a book by my friend Sruli Besser about the legendary educator, Rabbi David Schrenk, Zechrona Livracha, who was a celebrated mechanech and Rebbe and teacher and lover of Yiddish Kinderlach, and taught for many years and led the school in Adelphia, New Jersey. And he shares, I just read it a few days ago, and it was such a moving story for me. And I want to share it with you. He says one day in yeshiva, the boys started to discover that money was missing. Just a bunch of petty thefts. Not crazy amounts of money, but $1 here and $2 here and 50 cents here. And you remember in those days, a quarter, you can accomplish a lot with a quarter, and even a dime was not nishkin katlakanya, and even a nickel was not to be dismissed. And there's just nickels were stolen, a dime here, a quarter here, $1 here, $5 here, $10 here. Just a bunch of small and petty thefts. And finally, there was a pattern emerging after some days and nights. More boys and more boys realized that any money they were leaving around in their rooms, in their pants, in their jackets, were being stolen by somebody. So, this is before the days of cameras in every room, and before the days of Google Maps, and before the days where somebody knew where you were, even if you did not know where you were, and you were being tracked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They conspired to try to figure out and make some money to find the Ganav in the shtetl, who's the thief. And indeed, they cast their eye on somebody, they cast their suspicion, they did some investigations, and it seemed quite obvious that he is the thief, and they conspired together that one night, after Ma'ariv, after Night Seder, they're going to go up to his room, unexpected, and they are going to search through his room. And if they find the Gneva, they will physically beat him up. They will physically beat him up. Teach him the lesson of his life, not to touch other people's money. During Ma'ariv, Rav David Schrenk, Zechrona Livracha, sensed that, you sense that there's action in yeshiva. Yeah, right? And anybody who knows about chinuch, you could sense the drama. You could see in the boys' eyes that there's suspense. It's going to be a lebedik night in the dormitory. So through his connections, he's curious, he wants to know what's going on, and he finds out what the plan is. He also finds out who are the boys whom all their money was stolen, a lot of their money was stolen. And right after Ma'ariv, he summons this whole group, and he says, come to my house. Okay, Rabbi Schrenk wants them in the house. It's always geschmack to go to his house, get some good food, get some good nash. He was a really loving and dedicated pedagogue, not just a teacher, but a pedagogue. And they all come to the house. He sits down with a serious face. He says, guys, you will not believe what happened this morning. You will not believe. A boy came to me, sat down, and he says, Rabbi Schrenk, I have been stealing money from a bunch of boys. And I've been doing it for a while now. And Rabbi Schrenk says, I looked at this boy and I could not believe it. He was the last person I would imagine would be capable of this. But he said he's the guy who took the money. And he goes on for a few minutes describing this boy. And he says, and don't ask me who it is, because I'm not going to tell you. And I just want to tell you, you will never, ever, ever in a million years guess that this is the boy. Never. And after a few minutes of preaching this rhetoric, communicating this message, they actually started to doubt if they know the right person. He said, I'm telling you, you could never guess that it's this kid, because I, who knows these boys through and through, never guessed it and would have never guessed it. So I'm telling you, you'll never guess it. And I want to tell you something else. He told me, he said that he didn't keep a cheshbon. From this one I took 50s, and this one I took $1, this one I took $2, $3, $4. He didn't take a cheshbon. But he feels horrible, and he wants to do tshuva. So he gave me this huge stack of money, everything that he stole, just one pile. And he said, please, return it to the boys. And Rabbi Trank pulled out from an envelope a huge stack of money, a lot of dollar bills, $5 bills, $10 bills, a lot of change. And he said, Chevra, you all know what was taken from you. Please, take the money that's owed to you and go home and take it. And that's what happened. And then he sent a message to the real perpetrator. It would be a wise idea not to do these things again. That boy, the real Ganav, whose dignity, reputation, future, and physical health was saved, turned out to become an extraordinary student, graduate of the yeshiva, because a teacher did not allow a moment of a serious mistaken sin allow him to define and label that child, but rather thought about long-term consequences, about the potential of every neshama, and saved his life. That's called an expansive derech, to embrace each one of our children until that great moment. V'chol banayich limudei Hashem will become a vivid reality. V'sechazene inenu b'shuvcha l'tzion v'rachamim b'mheira b'yameinu amen v'amen. Thank you very much.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.